Hello everybody, welcome back to Fan Watches YouTube channel, and today we're going to be talking about authenticating watches and the process that we go through here at Fathom. The example we're going to be using today is a watch that came to us recently. It's a Rolex 5513 Submariner full set. We're going to use this to show you how we go through the process of authenticating watches that we then sell to you guys. Enjoy. So earlier this week, we had a customer send us a watch for us to sell on consignment. Unfortunately, we had to deliver some bad news to the customer when the watch arrived. So I'm going to talk to you about how we got to the conclusion we got and a little bit about the process that we go through to show you exactly how the watches that we sell to you are authenticated and we are sure that they're right and what we say they are. So this is a Rolex 5513 Submariner full set. It has been sold previously by another dealer in the UK and then subsequently serviced by Rolex and then subsequently serviced again and then resold via another service provider and watchmaker, which again makes it even worse. The watch in question is this, and on the face of it, it all looks singing and dancing until you start getting a little bit closer. So when we authenticate a watch, the first thing we do with any watch is we take the bracelet off to assess serial numbers, especially on a Rolex where they're on the 6 o'clock side of the lugs and the 12 o'clock side is the model number. So we use this to check the engravings to make sure that everything is fine. So we normally look at the watch, we have the watch in hand. We examine the serial numbers on both sides to make sure everything looks like it's in place, which on this watch it does. And then we start looking a little bit more about the dial, the hand condition, and to see if the Lume is correct. When we inspected this watch for the first time, the Lume immediately looked slightly odd, slightly wrong texture for the age, considering this is a 76 serial. The Lume texture should be very thin, almost printed like. And on this, it was quite puffy and textured. Very even, and also absolutely zero luminosity when I use the high-powered UV. We actually have a couple of other watches in stock that are very similar age to this, and the Lume consistency and luminosity is completely different. So that was a bit of a warning sign that the dial's probably been relumed as well as the hands. So we take the case back off, everything looks great, movement's correct, case back's correct. The bezel is actually aftermarket. It's trying to mimic a flat 4 bezel, which is 84 onwards. But the way this has been manufactured and made up close, you can tell it's not actually an original factory bezel. It's an aftermarket one, like a good one, but probably from Vietnam. Secondly, we looked at the bracelet. The bracelet is a slightly later bracelet, but that's common because the watch has been at service quite a few times. It's an S-stamped bracelet, but it's a 93150 and it's correct. And then the accessories. So with this watch, when it was sold by the retailer back in 2012, this watch was sold as box and papers on the invoice, which is here, but the whole thing has been put together. So this box here, if you've watched our previous video about box and papers, this is a 60s pyramid box. So a bit early for a 1976 Submariner. The outer box is correct though, it's a seahorse box, which you'd expect to see, but these two don't go together. Then comes with its paperwork, great. It's got a very faint stamp on it with 1174, and then the punched papers at the top, slightly out of line, which isn't too uncommon. However, the problem with this is the papers are stamped 1174, the watch is bang on 1976, so you can't stamp papers before the watch was sold. So that's another warning sign. So what I think's happened here is someone's had a blank paper, they found one as close to the point, and then they've got someone to punch it. Unfortunately, punching machines are available in various places, and some people do have them and use them unscrupulously to then re-add the serial numbers to papers to make the watch appear to be a full set. This is why I've always said box and papers do not aid you when it comes to authenticating the originality of a watch, and this is a prime example. But everyone will go, well, hang on a minute, it's been serviced by Rolex and it's been serviced by a Rolex accredited watchmaker. People need to understand watchmakers at Rolex today and third-party watchmakers were not around when these watches were made. They don't have an encyclopedic knowledge like a lot of dealers do about what dials came in what watches at certain times, etc., etc. They're not professionals at spotting if a lume is reloomed or not. That's not their job. Most watchmakers are brilliant at movements. They can tell you if a movement is fake within 2 seconds. The rest of it is not really their concern. So it's a bit like going to a car garage and having your car serviced by a technician and expecting the technician to also assess the bodywork and quote you for it. It's not going to happen. Don't ask a fish to climb, don't ask a monkey to swim, is the saying, and this is exactly what it is here. The watch is all correct. There's nothing fake about the watch, which is why Rolex would service it, no problem, because as long as the serial number matches a 5513, they don't really care. And also they're not privy to the information. The other slightly more concerning thing was then the watch, after it was serviced by Rolex 2 years after it was sold by the dealer, it was then serviced again by Rolex accredited watchmaker and then subsequently sold by that watchmaker to the current owner. And again, it was serviced, the watch is real, but unfortunately it's not a full set Rolex Submariner, and the dial and hands have been reloomed, and the bezel is later and aftermarket. So all these things add up to a value which is significantly less than what the owner paid or should have paid, and that here lies the issue. So everything in vintage is on a continuum. Whether you've got the best example in the world or the worst example, everything has a price. And what we do here at Fathom and other reputable dealers do, we have to assess the watch individually and work out a price in accordance with the originality and condition of the watch. So in this instance, the guy paid around 15,000 for the watch for a full set, but the issue is the watch actually isn't a full set. These papers have been added, this box has been added, these translation papers have been added. So unfortunately, if I was to retail this, I couldn't retail the watch as a full set. Also, we'd have to, disclose the dial has been reloomed, as have the hands, and we'd have to source a correct bezel for it that isn't aftermarket to then resell the watch, of which the watch would then be worth around £12,000. So a significant amount less than what the person paid for it. And as you can imagine, relatively upset about the outcome. So, how do you authenticate watches? We have a fixed process when a watch comes in. We take the case back off a watch, we check the movement, check the case back, check the serial numbers, bracelet, if the bracelet is later or not, or original or not. Things like the dial, we inspect the lume using tools, loupes, case back remover, microscope if we need to get into real depth with the lume. But 9 times out of 10, because we have so much experience with looking at these looms all the time, a very high powered loupe and a light is more than sufficient. And then based on that, we can assess the watch's value comparatively to others that we've sold or others in the market, and then formulate a price based on that. That is a rough process of how we authenticate a watch here at Fathom. And if we have any other questions that we are unsure about, we always reach out to other partners of ours that we know that have slightly more experience when it comes to movements, when it comes to certain other brands, to gain a solid standpoint on a watch that we're selling. Because ultimately, we're putting our name to it, and we're also writing in black and white online, as you know, what is and isn't original about a watch. So there is recourse for you in the future. So I hope that helps. And I say, it's why you buy off reputable dealers who understand the product that they're selling. And you've always got to ask questions, and based on their answers, you can make an informed decision on your purchase. Hope that's helpful, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next video.